Thank you very much, Bob Chapman, for joining us in the Power Hour today.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you, sir. Now, what if, and I know that you're on the line there. Whoa. Are you there?
Hello. I dropped the phone. I'm sorry.
Oh, man. Never done that before.
No.
What do you think? Let me just ask you. Were you on the phone when I was talking about the starting of the oil well fires in Iraq? Did you hear that?
I heard the whole thing.
Okay, what are the implications, do you think, if the world understood that we had started those fires to make everybody angry at Iraq to go fight a war with them?
Well, I think the natural response would be that we've been taken again. And it's just as simple as that. We just get lied to and lied to and lied to. And, the attitude of the Army to their own, but more importantly, let's hark back to what was said by Henry Kissinger, I think it was in 1973 or 74, that soldiers are just dumb animals.
Right.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I couldn't believe it at first. I thought that was a scam, but it's true.
Their attitude. I mean, they are expendable.
Yes.
And so, you get someone like these 6 Special Forces people who contacted you and told you what really happened. Now, what is this, almost 20 years later, or 18 years later, you say to yourself, how could they know what the government was up to? And I think most of them, I'm just guessing, perhaps 75% of them probably feel, I was really, really taken. Mm-hmm. And, when I went into the Army back in the 1950s and discovered the truth about what had been going on with the bombing of Pearl Harbor and other secret situations within the State Department and the executive branch of government, I was absolutely appalled. I mean, I wouldn't think my government would do such things. It changed my whole life. Mm-hmm. And after I completed my service in counterintelligence, I went on to study for years and years and years, like Dr. Stan Monteith did, and discovered what was behind it all and who was out there doing this to us. And this is the biggest part of understanding what's really going on. You got to clear away the clutter and what's accepted, and you have to dive in and find out who really is behind all this and why are they doing it. And as a journalist, whether it's on the air or in writing, if you don't understand that, and I know you do, Joyce, but if you don't understand that, you don't have a clue to what's really going on.
Well, we have to get rid of everything. Like you said, the clutter. You have to get rid of everything. And you have to be willing to relearn, which is a horrible situation, especially, when people are 50, 60, 70 years of age. They don't want to do that. They don't want to know that. But let me just use the example, though, of taking the oil well fires. It's a story we all believed. We were told this. We bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. How do we know what's going on in Washington right now is what's going on? It's a facade. We don't know the real story. Until the people start coming forward and exposing what happened, we're not going to know. And I wish that it would not take 19 years for people to do that, or 15 years, or whatever. I wish that we would start getting more and more chatter all the time from the financial sector, from the people involved in Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, people involved in the banks. We need to be getting the chatter from what's going on right now, because that's the only way we're going to put all this together. And speaking of banks, I'll just lead off with that, because there were some banks that went down this past weekend, weren't there?
There were 7 of them?
7 banks.
I don't know what the total, it must be 50 already. And I think 300 is a sure bet before the end of the year, maybe 500, maybe even more. Uh-huh. And what people don't know is the control of the currencies office. And I might parenthesize this by saying that in this new financial reform bill that they're trying to shove through, the Federal Reserve would take over the control of the currency and the FDIC and the SEC and the CFTC. It would make it a financial monster. It would remind you, there were two sections to the SS during the Second World War. There were the combat people who normally went out and did their jobs mostly against Russians and others on the Eastern Front. And then there was the SA, and the SA really ran day-to-day operations throughout the country. And that's what the Federal Reserve would become. But getting back to the controller of the currency, they have people who are actually running over 2,000 banks right now.
Whoa.
And
how did you find that out? That is unbelievable.
Somebody in banking told me that. And, there was a slip by Elizabeth Warren 2 weeks ago. And she said the banks in the United States is a little over 4,000. And I said to myself, there's supposed to be 8,000. So Elizabeth is a professor at Harvard. She teaches law. She's certainly not a dumb bunny. And I don't think that was a slip. I think that they've been absorbing that many banks one into another and not telling anybody about it.
Wow.
So if we were to, over the next 2 years, this year and next year, if we were to lose 1,000 to 2,000 banks, we'd be down to 3 of 2,000. And this Reform Act, the overall thing is not of the concentration of power in the Federal Reserve, which we'd like to get rid of, but it's going in the opposite direction. They're very aggressively pushing it. We would get all financial services of all kinds being run by a private organization, the Federal Reserve, which is absolute insanity.
Well, I don't think we know. Now, I sent you one of the articles on one of the banks that I knew was being run by the Office of the Comptroller, which I thought that was pretty brazen of them to put that in the newspaper. But people don't understand what that means. I don't think they really realize to the point that means that bank is pretty much close to insolvency or control.
Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to find out how they're going to phase it out. Are they going to declare it bankrupt, or is Bank XYZ going to come in and say, okay, we'll take over this, that, and the other thing, but you have to guarantee what's going on. You have to guarantee us against losses. And the FDIC does that. The FDIC's only got about $90 billion left, and they've already gotten contributions from the banks who fund them for the next 3 years in the till. And so they're not going to get any more money. And when the 92 is gone, what's next? Well, either the American taxpayer, through Congress, funds the FDIC and insures some of the taxpayers against other taxpayers, or they do away with insurance. I think they're going to do away with insurance, but we'll see. But the important thing is, no matter which way you go in this, all the banks are being bailed out by the public. The public has the debt. They'll have to pay it, and that'll come about by increased taxation. Taxation is going up 20% next year, and it's going to be like that over and over again. They're asking for another 20%, which is a brutal tax.
Oh, what? Yeah, you can work through November now, and everything you earn from January to November goes in your taxes, and then you get December. And people going, oh, well, that's nice. Let me just go back to the bank failure problem, because what I think is significant is all 7 of those banks that we were talking about were in Illinois. And the failure rate now is 57 banks thus far this year. But all of them were in Illinois. 4 of them were in Chicago. And also the FDIC has now elevated their confidential problem list of banks, which was at 552. They've elevated that to 702. But the average person's walking around going, hey, I can go get my money anytime. I got this little card here. I just put it in the machine and I'm fine. People have no idea how strapped they are or how bad off and how close to insolvency many of the banks are.
Well, that's why we tell the subscribers no more than 3 months operating expenses in a bank or checking account. And for businesses, no more than 6 months. They have to have cash flow. They'll shut down. And no CDs whatsoever. I don't care whether it's a credit union or a savings and loan or a bank. No CDs. Period. Put them in gold and silver related assets. I mean, that's what Ted Anderson's all about. And that's the important thing you should be doing.
All right, it's 19 minutes after the hour. We will be back after a 4-minute break with our guest today, the Bob Chapman, the International Forecaster newsletter. Please get a complimentary copy. Check it out.